Welcome back. Milwaukee County Judge Hannah Dugan is scheduled back in court this week. A preliminary hearing and arraignment and plea is set for Thursday at the federal courthouse in Milwaukee. The FBI arrested Dugan inside the Milwaukee County Courthouse. She's accused of helping an undocumented migrant evade ICE agents after appearing in her courtroom on domestic violence charges. FBI Director Kash Patel praised the arrest on social media, even posting this picture of Judge Dugan in handcuffs. Now, more than 150 former state and federal judges are condemning the Trump administration, writing in a letter to U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi, quote, "The circumstances of Judge Dugan's arrest make it clear that it was nothing but an effort to threaten and intimidate the state and federal judiciaries into submitting to the administration instead of interpreting the Constitution and laws of the United States." Former U.S. District Judge Nancy Gertner from Massachusetts helped lead that effort. She joins us now. Judge, welcome to the show. Good to see you.
Good to be on.
I want to first start with this letter. This is a long list of former state and federal judges, some appointed by Democrats, some appointed by Republicans. How did this all come about?
Judge Michael Luttig, who was appointed by a Republican, and I drafted the letter and then opened it up to everyone we knew who was a retired federal or state judge to see if they wanted to sign on. And the reaction was extraordinary. In fact, the reaction continues to this day. I'm getting emails from people who didn't get a chance to sign on and want to sign on now. So it was quite extraordinary.
What do you make of that?
Well, I don't think that there's any issue with respect to how Judge Dugan was treated. In other words, whatever she did or didn't do, the notion that the Department of Justice had to arrest her, right, rather than sending a summons and telling her to appear on a certain date. The notion that they had to arrest her was itself extraordinary. The notion that they could wait 7 days to arrest her, if they had that time to wait, they could well have done what they wanted to do through a summons. And worst of all, the notion that they had to parade her, what we call the perp walk, to handcuff her, take a picture of her getting into the car, having Kash Patel, the head of the FBI, post that picture, is humiliating, degrading, and ultimately intimidating. That was the only point of it.
I do want to ask you about the accusations that she directed this defendant who was in her courtroom and who was in the country illegally to leave through the jury door. She's been accused by prosecutors of evading ICE agents. Is that acceptable behavior for a judge?
I don't think it would be acceptable behavior if it's true. The question is if it is true. The affidavit in support of the arrest says that she sent him out the side door to a public hallway. Let me repeat that, to a public hallway. This was not secreting him outside the courtroom. This was to a public hallway. So I'm gonna withhold any judgment until I hear what the hell they're talking about.
What do you see as the impact of this arrest and perhaps more broadly, what happens as this case now goes through the system?
Well, I think that the impact of this arrest, the intention was to intimidate judges. I think that the response of the 150 judges who signed Judge Luttig's letter and my letter make it clear that that's not going to work. But that is clearly the intent. And when you add that to the kinds of attacks that we see, Trump leveling and Bondi leveling at federal judges with whom they disagree, this is part of a pattern. You judges will not prevent this administration doing whatever we want to do, and that's simply not going to work. Not going to work, period.
Retired U.S. District Judge Nancy Gertner. Judge, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Up next, the 18-month battle.